Yes, hello and welcome everybody. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice, back again today with another one of my video presentation thingamadoodads. We've had a little bit of a quiet period over the summer holiday while I took a vacation with the family and a few summery things and got the kids back in school. But here I am, I'm back again with more of my lovely video presentations. And as you can see on the screen there, today's installment, we're going to talk about the Ministry of Dice's Dice Masters intellectual property wish list. I know you've all got one out there too. For whatever reason recently, I don't know why, in the last 2 months or so, we've just been asked loads and loads and loads of times over what intellectual properties we'd like to see in Dice Masters. We were asked on our live birthday stream. We've recently been asked in a guest spot that we did on another content creators thing that isn't out yet, so I'll not talk about that. We did spend some time with TJ on his Friday Night Click stream one night, and we talked about it a little bit there, and then I got an instant message by Facebook, somebody was asking about it, and then there was a big conversation on Discord, and somebody tagged me on a post, and I don't know, just it seems to be coming up a lot lately, so I just thought I'd take a few minutes to put the master list, the Ministry of Dice intellectual property wish list, the master list out there of our top five that Andy and I talk about, and when asked, we kind of go back to and revisit and say this is on our wish list over and over and over again. Before I do, just a quick, I always like to mention, thank you so very much, guys, for taking the time to subscribe to our channel and watch our content. Thanks also to anyone out there who listens to the podcast or visits the BritRoller6.com website. I just want to do a quick little plug there. Over on BritRoller6.com, I've been putting a lot of time and effort into kind of brushing up the look and feel of the site, introducing some new kind of articles in there. I'd really love it if you folks could make your way over and check out the mod files, for example, and take a look at Stuart's little humour strips in there, or take a look at the team list archive that I've put together, where our live streams on a Wednesday night, I've started putting together the Dice Coalition team builder team lists and sharing them there by theme. So if you get a few minutes, head on over. But you're the best audience in the world. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch and consume what we put out there. And you're the best. You're the best. Thank you so very much. Right, all that said, let's get on with it. Let's talk about our top five intellectual property wish list. And on to number one then to begin with. Any guesses out there before I kind of call it out? No? Okay, well, I'm going to stay in the kind of comic book space here, and I'm going to talk about DC Vertigo. Now, DC Vertigo, if anyone doesn't know, it's kind of like an offshoot under the DC umbrella, what they call an imprint. Some of their stuff sits in main continuity, but largely speaking, it doesn't. There's some tremendous titles that DC Vertigo have done that have been produced by some of the best writers in the biz, and also some of the best artists in the biz, which is one of the key reasons why I think it could make a great Dice Masters set or sets, that you could build upon. There's a particular period in time where I was reading an awful lot of DC Vertigo stuff, and I love titles like The Preacher, superb characters like Jesse Custer, Tulip, and Cassidy, that you could build cards around and have these really interesting game texts off the back of, you could give Jesse the word of God keyword or something, I don't know, but I mean the artwork, as you see there, is outstanding. It would make a really good looking set too, albeit probably pretty family unfriendly, which is probably the reason why we'll never get a Vertigo set. But anyway, I'm going to plan one regardless. Neil Gaiman stuff, what's largely described as the endless bits and bobs from the 90s. You've got the Sandman and the Endless there, and there are lots of offshoots like the Books of Magic with Tim Hunter, and you've got, is it Tim Hunter? Yeah, Tim Hunter, I think, and Lucifer, of course, a very popular TV show now, but it was a spin-off of the DC Vertigo Sandman and the Endless series there. So loads of great characters. You could build some really interesting game texts, and the Sandman had, and these books had a range of artists. So it would make a really interesting and visually engaging set there. I also, one of my all-time faves is Warren Ellis's Transmetropolitan. Love the artwork here by Derek Robertson. Again, really super family unfriendly, so I don't think we'll ever see a set, but really this kind of crazy sci-fi future world that's with really interesting and deep and curious characters that I think would make a really visually engaging set and would kind of get the designer imaginations going in terms of game text that they produce. We've got the Invisibles. In fact, the online pseudonym True Mr. Six is inspired by a character from this book, the decked out retro wizard that is Mr. Six. Again, a range of really interesting artists worked on this book over the years, over the volumes. It's got really fascinating characters, although again, very family unfriendly. But never mind. But again, just really about getting that imagination going around what the game text and how they could connect to the abilities. And this is all about kind of black magic and occult and mystical kind of stuff. So there could be some really interesting game text off the back of that. Or if you like it a bit more grounded and something a bit more solid, you've got the 100 Bullets title, which was superb if you ever get a chance to check it out. Brian Azzarello wrote a tremendous kind of gritty crime thing there. The artwork is tremendous, although I realise the picture I've chosen there, it's just 5 guys in kind of Reservoir Dogs style black suits and ties. But trust me, they're the Minutemen, and they're really interesting characters, and they've all got very unique abilities and personalities that could influence the game text. And I don't know, I love DC Vertigo. I think it often goes underappreciated. There was a period of time, like I say, where these titles specifically were all going on in the sort of late 90s into the early 2000s. That was, to my mind, was an absolute golden age of DC Vertigo stuff, although they've had lots of great stuff since. And I'd really love to see a set based on them. So there you go, DC Vertigo, number 5. On to my number 4 pit then. I'll just pause, have a listen. Any guesses out there before I carry on? No? Yeah? Okay, maybe someone at the back there got it right. But here we go, number 4. This is Andy's pick. So my man Andy, my partner in crime in the Ministry of Dice, is a huge 80s kind of action-adventure movie buff. That is his jam. This dude loves his 80s action. And on the live stream, he was kind of talking about sort of 80s action movies that he holds dear and really loves. Massive Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, for example. And I mentioned that, well, that could be possible in the tone and flavour of Dice Masters, because you've got publishers like Dark Horse Comics who own a lot of these imprints and continue to produce stories and, kind of expanded universe stories based around a lot of the stuff that he was mentioning. So, for example, Dark Horse Comics, they have the Terminator property. And look at that artwork. Great, really menacing sort of picture of the Terminator there that you could make some really engaging, visually awesome cards out of. Or you've got Aliens. They've done loads of Aliens books, part of the Aliens and Predators universe over the years. RoboCop, they own RoboCop, they've done RoboCop. There's the Predator, I just mentioned Aliens, the Predator, that's from a book called Concrete Jungle, which was actually a really popular title, sold incredibly well back in the day. I used to have a copy of it myself. And then you've got, if you want something a little bit more kind of mainstream, you've got the Indiana Jones Adventures that they own. So, WWE notwithstanding, if you wanted to explore that 80s space, that kind of 80s action adventure space and that nostalgia space, then you could do through a comic book adaptation kind of route through Dark Horse Comics. And don't forget also Marvel Comics has got loads of these intellectual property partnerships, these licenses. They produced a lot of kind of movie spin-off titles as well, so you really could do something super exciting and fun there. And as Andy said on the stream, that would sell. It would fly off the shelves, either as a kind of limited edition special set, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. I don't know, if Dice Masters is still around in 2030, maybe they could do a 50-year edition. Anyway, but these are really popular intellectual properties. You could definitely make them fit the tone and feel of the game using the comic book adaptation route, and it would just be a really popular seller. So come on, get on that licensing agreement, WizKids. Chop chop now. Right, on to number 3 then. Number 3 has been talked about a lot, and there was loads in this kind of space here, sticking in the sort of 80s nostalgia area that I could have picked, but I went with G.I. Joe. I was talking about Mask. Some of you guys remember Mask and Visionaries and all those kind of bits and bobs, and Thundercats, tons of great. I don't know what it was about the 80s. They loved selling toys. It was capitalism, wasn't it? But G.I. Joe particularly has a very kind of nostalgic soft spot in my heart. Just a little known fact for the viewers here. Over here in the United Kingdom, G.I. Joe wasn't a thing. It used to be called Action Force. They changed the name and rebranded all the toy boxes and stuff. And we never had the cartoon, or certainly we didn't see the cartoon until many years later after it had been released in North America, because of the name change. And obviously the cartoons all go G.I. Joe, all American hero, G.I. Joe. So they never brought it out over as a cartoon. So I fell in love with G.I. Joe through the Marvel comic book the Hasbro Marvel comic book adaptations that were republished as these kind of newsagent magazine style things here in the United Kingdom. And from the toys in Toys R Us, I never saw the cartoon, would you believe, until many, many years later, which is, I don't know, interesting. That might have been a cool story, bro moment. You tell me in the comments below. But G.I. Joe, I think, would make a really great set. There's obviously such a wealth of characters that were used in the comic book series, and they all, because of the way the cartoon, but because of the way the cartoon was put together, they all had these kind of specific abilities or roles to fulfill as part of the unit. You've obviously got the affiliations there, G.I. Joe, you've got Cobra, obviously, you've also got oh Jesus, what are they called? The Dreadnoks. So you've got this kind of these affiliations that you can attach to the cards, and everyone's got all their kind of abilities. I'll tell you one thing as well that I'd absolutely love. I mean, if they did a set, it'd have to be based on the 80s cartoon. But I was a big fan of, I don't know if you've seen this, IDW, the comic book publisher, did a range of what's often referred to as the IDW continuity for G.I. Joe. I think it was around the sort of mid-2000s into the early 2010s. And these were tremendous. These were really good. I mean, again, if they do a set, they're going to have to do the 80s cartoon. There's just no two ways about it. But if you ever get an opportunity to check this out, it's brilliant. It took away a bit of the camp and the cheese that was sort of present in the cartoon and added a more kind of realistic look at the sort of military elements, but still fanciful. It's still there's still wacky, contraptions and weapons and aircraft and stuff and tanks and things that they use and robots and Snake Eyes is still inhumanly capable of doing things that would never be possible in real life. But the incredible run. And they've done these collections. I think there's 8 volumes right now. We're missing a kind of 9th volume. It never kind of got wrapped up, which is a shame, but really, really good. Anyway, I'll stop gushing over that. But I'll tell you what, the G.I. Joe set, I was letting my imagination run wild, and I was thinking about it while I was prepping up this video. And you could really do something great with, like, action dice and the gear concept in Dice Masters. Like, Snake Eyes' Uzi would be a great one, or Serpentor's Air Chariot, or Roadblock's 50 caliber, or what was the other one I was thinking about? I didn't get a picture for this one, but like Zartan's Harley Davidson. I don't know, you could just really do something with gear and equipment, or an action. Basic action and action dice stuff. I don't know. It felt like with that military theme, like getting Roadblock out and then tooling him up. Getting him a Jeep and his 50 caliber, and or getting Snake Eyes out and giving him his swords and his Uzi. And anyway, I was just having one of those moments that I'm sure many of you out there have had as well, where you're just letting your imaginations run wild with an idea. But I think G.I. Joe would make a great set. Such a broad selection of characters that they could choose from. Could really let the imagination run wild on the game text, introduce or revisit some keywords in an interesting way, and again, it would just fly off the shelves just based on that 80s nostalgia. Or, like I say, Mask or Visionaries, or, I don't know, DuckTales or Gummy Bears or something. Right, on to number 2 then. I mean, who doesn't like Gummy Bears? It possibly is the finest 80s cartoon theme song. Obviously, Transformers is on the list, but the Gummy Bears, incredible theme song. Go when you finish watching this, go Google Gummy Bears theme song if you're not familiar with it. It is outstanding. And then do the DuckTales one after that. Right, number 2 on my IP wish list then. So this is a bit of a cheat, really, because I've gone for, on this list, the DC Animated Universe. I talked about it with TJ on the Friday Night Click stream. And of course, I put Justice League Unlimited on the screen, but the DC Animated Universe wasn't just the Justice League Unlimited. You had Batman Animated Series, you had Batman and Robin Adventures, Batman Beyond, Superman the Animated Series, you had the Legion of Superheroes, the one set in the future that was a Superman spin-off. Oh, there was Static Shock. I don't know if some of you guys remember watching that on the Cartoon Network. I don't think there was a lot of episodes of that. And I'm actually not entirely certain, all these years later, I've seen all the episodes of that, because it used to be one of those You know, like they do on Cartoon Network, where they sort of end up repeating the same episodes and showing them out of order. And the Zeta Project, that was another one as well that was kind of in the staple. So loads of content there, but it's a bit of a cheat because we obviously have had some Batman animated series cards. There was the OP kits. There was a foil Clayface that was knocking around. There's the Young Justice set. I mean, I know they're not DC Animated Universe, but still. But I'm just super jealous that the HeroClix game has had a full-on Batman animated series set or two. They've just recently had a Justice League Unlimited set, and I used to love these, and I know many of you will too. They were awesome cartoons. They weren't just like fluff. There was overarching story arcs and character depth and highs and lows and twists and turns, and characters developed and went through journeys, and they weren't afraid to go to some kind of more darker, more interesting places in the storylines and grapple with some fascinating ideas that, you know, I just think would make a great set and would look brilliant, you know. And also some of the characters from the DC animated universe have been a little underserved, I think, in the game, certainly from a DC perspective. Like, you know, how have we not got a Jon Stewart Green Lantern, or for that matter a Guy Gardner, although he's not really a strong presence in the DCAU. But you know, before the War of Light blue version of him, or whatever, purple version. So it's a bit of a cheat, I know, because we have had some cards that are sort of in this space here, but I'm just super jealous that HeroClix has had like some more fleshed out sets in this space, and I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it. It would really, like 12-year-old Chris would be so excited to see it. So there you go. Right then, well, there's my 5 through 2. Has anyone got any guesses as to what my number 1 might be? If you watched our birthday stream, you'll know because I mentioned it there. My number 1 pick, I'm going to stay in the kind of comic booky space here. My number 1 pick that I would really super love to see as a Dice Masters set is the Wildstorm comic books. Now, a really interesting story around Wildstorm comic books. I'm not going to go into detail here now, but Rob Liefeld had this kind of creator-owned independent label, and then when he joined the Image Comics kind of collaboration, he took those characters and those stories into Image Comics, and so the Wildstorm universe was sort of existing in Image Comics for a period of time, and through the 90s I used to read a few of those because they were kind of sort of X-Men-y, but they weren't X-Men-y because I didn't have to know and understand 60 years worth of lore because it was starting fresh at the time I was at that age of reading comics. But then DC got folded into DC, but then DC they didn't fold it into their main continuity. They kept it its own continuity that was running in its own way, and so they had their own characters and their own storylines. I was reading a lot of the time of what I suppose you would call the kind of Warren Ellis era of Wildstorm there. I really love those books, and I'll show you a couple of the ones that I'd recommend in a moment. And then when DC New 52 came along, they rolled the characters into the New 52. But a few of the great characters, the really fantastic characters in Wildstorm were still existing there. And then when they canned off the DC 52, they did a reboot, like last year or the year before, which was really good, but kind of changed some of the characters and stuff. So there's been ups and downs with Wildstorm, but there's a particular period, as I say, in the Wildstorm timeline that I used to read a lot and I was a big fan of, like I say, the Warren Ellis era. So The Planetary, incredible book, amazing artwork by John Cassidy in there, and Warren Ellis has really weaved together such an intelligent, cleverly put together kind of meta-referential story. If you, like me, are a super nerd and you love all sorts of different things from the broad church of nerddom, then The Planetary will appeal to you. It's amazing. It's a contained story. You can get it in, I think, 3 or 4 volumes as a graphic novel. There's some really interesting crossovers into the main DC universe as well. Like there was a Batman one that's really worth checking out. There's such a depth of character kind of storytelling around it that I love. Same again with The Authority that sits in that same sort of universe there, particularly the Warren Ellis and the Mark Miller volumes that you can get maybe in a trade paperback, so you can get the whole story in 4 or 5 volumes there. These, I suppose the thing is, again, like DC Vertigo, I mentioned it before, they're particularly, they're very gritty at times, and the violence can be quite dark and shocking, especially the way some of the artwork is done. So it's very family unfriendly, which may be the reason why we'll never see these titles. But the characters are great. I mean, like the Midnighter and Apollo are just brilliant. They've got a great story arc through the whole of kind of Stormwatch. mention that, all the way through kind of Stormwatch into the Authority, and you've got Jenny Sparks, who's just brilliant. And Elijah there from the Planetary, and then the Stormwatch characters. And you've also got, I just mentioned Wildcats before, that's from the Scott Lobdell kind of run that he did on it. And Gen 13 and Danger Girl, I didn't read those so much, but, just this great wealth of characters. Some of them are really kind of got a different feel and a different flavour to what you get from Marvel or DC that I think would be really worth checking out. Fantastic game text opportunity there, and just some really tremendous artists have worked on these comic books. So again, it would be a super visually engaging, just great looking set if you did something with Wildstorm, But like I say, probably some of these more popular characters did some very, very child unfriendly things. So there you go. So there we are, folks. There's our top 5, or I should say top 4 from me and 1 from Andy, because his whole thing is 80s movies. Get those 80s action movies made into a set. He would be so excited. Oh, except for him going on about like making a porn tube set over and over again. So there we are. There's our IPs. I know you out there have got stuff on your wish list too. I know it. So come on, let me know in the comments below if there's something that you'd love to see a Dice Master set. As I mentioned before, I was talking about classic 80s cartoons with some of the lads from the UK a few weeks back, like Mask and Thundercats and, I don't know, Super Ted and Banana Man. And those are... I'm sort of joking, half joking, but I would actually love to see a Banana Man card. Or maybe you're a Robert Kirkman fan, Image Comics, and you'd love to see a Walking Dead set or an Invincible set, something like that. Or maybe there's something really wacky and off the wall. I've mentioned Avatar: The Last Airbender before. These are all kind of, I suppose I'm talking about my 6 through 10s here that I've not included in this video. But you let me know, what are your great intellectual property ideas? There's no sign of these on the horizon. This really was just letting my imagination run wild and responding to the fact that we've been asked about this loads lately. And I'd be really interested to hear what your imaginations going wild are. Maybe you want a Strictly Come Dancing set. I don't know. So there we are. There's the conclusion of my video. If you've got a few more minutes, the really clever YouTube algorithm is going to recommend a couple of videos on the right-hand side of the screen for you to check out. So if you've got a few more minutes, go and take a look at one of those. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed my banter on this one, or if you've enjoyed just this little flight of fancy. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys on a podcast, on another video, or on an article on BritRoller6.com sometime soon. All right, cheers, folks. Ta-ra.